The Oppressor Mark II in GC Online is one of the best vehicles in the game for PvP as it is. However, learning to properly pilot it upside down makes it hands down the best anti-everything single player vehicle in the entire game, and in some situations you are quite literally unkillable. This video goes into extreme depth of everything that I've learned while using it, and I'll teach you from start to finish how to fly upside down, all the way to hitting almost all your shots against ground targets. Keep in mind this guide gets progressively harder and it may take a bit of practice between each step before you master it. I will also refer to the Upside Down Mark II as UD Mark II for short. While this guide is meant for keyboard and mouse, most aspects of it can still apply to controller players. So without further ado, let's start with the first step, which is learning how to actually go upside down. To enter upside down mode, all you need to do is fly into any sort of flat surface or building while holding Control and W, and using the A and D keys to keep yourself pointing straight up. The Mark II should then be upside down and will immediately want to correct itself. Before you learn how to stabilize it though, just practice flying into walls and surfaces to get into a good habit of getting the Mark II and the upside down position quickly. This will help you when you inevitably flip back over while learning to keep it upside down. For more advanced players, you will already have learned that the Mark II does not always have to use walls or buildings to flip over. Basically, anything that is pointed 90 degrees can be used to go upside down. Trees or cliff faces can also be used in places where there aren't many buildings around, and you can even use other Mark II players to flip over. But if you're just starting out, buildings will work just fine. Once you've practiced going upside down, you need to learn how to stop it from flipping back over. This is one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to mastering UD Mark II and will take a lot of practice to get used to. The instant the Mark II goes upside down, it will start correcting itself. Try to keep the underside of the Mark II facing upward as best as you can. Holding Control will push your nose down, while holding Shift will push it up. Holding A will roll it to the right, and holding D will roll it to the left. As you can see, the oppressor is pointing down, so I need to bring it back up by holding Shift. Now it's pointing up, so I need to hold Control. You'll want to be constantly using the A and D keys to keep it centered and to stop it from rolling too far and flipping back over. Keep in mind, while you do this, the oppressor will slowly be falling, so press spacebar to go upwards. I will explain why using the spacebar is so important later in the video. As I said, this will take a lot of practice, and you will flip over many times, but once you learn it, it's not that hard to stay upside down. After you can confidently keep the Mark II upside down for a minute or so, the next step is learning how to move around the bullet. Learning to turn the Mark II wherever you want is what I think people struggle with the most when first learning to use it. So first try to hold W and let it go wherever it wants, trying not to crash. Turning where you want is something that mainly comes from practicing and developing muscle memory, but to help you understand it, here's how it works. You first need to roll left or right so that the Mark II is at an angle. Then use Shift to point the nose forward into the direction that it's facing. Then level it out again to stop turning once you are pointing where you want to go. Just like learning to stay upside down, this will come a practice and eventually become second nature. You will eventually be able to point wherever you want and stay pointing there by making micro adjustments, as well as being able to slow down and come to a stop wherever you want. Another important thing to learn is how to go up or down very fast. This is especially useful for jets, as they won't expect a Mark II to be able to climb as fast as them. It's also useful for getting above the Luxor so that you can free aim them without them being able to lock you. This is one of the easier things to learn with the UD Mark II and won't take that long to master. You need to point the Mark II up, go forward, then use A, D and Control to make sure you don't tilt too far vertically and end up flipping back over. It's the exact same for going downward, but instead you use Shift to keep it from flipping. Although you can use buildings, there's a slightly more difficult way to go upside down from any location without using a wall. While your character is getting on the Mark II, start holding Control and W while spamming X. Then immediately after the boost, press spacebar. The timing of when you press the spacebar will determine whether or not you go upside down, and it will take practice to master it. If you press it slightly too early or too late, the Mark II won't quite make it all the way, and this will happen a lot. While you can start from a downward slope, it's much harder, so just move it to flatter ground somewhere else. One thing you'll come to learn is how fucking annoying lampposts are, since touching anything while upside down will make you fall off and send your Mark II flying. Using the spacebar in the Mark II is useful for many reasons, however it's important to understand how it works so you don't get confused later. Pressing spacebar will retract the wings and cause you to slowly fall. Holding Control will then cause the wings to extend until they're fully out again, at which point it will stop falling. Keep in mind that pressing Control just once will not bring them out all the way, and the length of the wings will determine how slowly you fall. Here you can see that I stopped pressing Control just before they were fully extended, so I'm still descending but very slowly. Then as soon as I press it once more, it stops falling completely. The exact same concept applies for UD Mark II, but obviously since it's inverted you go up instead of down. Note that you cannot press spacebar while holding right click for some reason, which becomes apparent when shooting with the explosive MGs underneath a bridge. Holding spacebar while flying upside down at an angle also makes you faster, since the vertical component cancels out with the angle down Mark II, while the horizontal component adds slightly more forward speed. Now that you know the basics of flying upside down, it's time to learn how to actually use it in combat. There are a few techniques to dodge missiles, but the method you use will depend on what missile is after you. I will teach you one method that works with basically all missiles, and another method that's slightly riskier but allows you to continue attacking while dodging. The first method is basically spinning in a tight circle while holding shift and spacebar. The spacebar gives you just enough speed to outrun them while turning, so don't forget to hold it down. When the Mk2 is angled like this, it's very easy to flip over, at which point the missiles will catch up, so be extra careful when doing this. You don't need to gain altitude to dodge them, but it will get you high enough so that they can't lock you anymore. This method must be used for the best missiles in the game, like the Deluxo or Scramjet missiles. The next method is what I use to dodge other Mk2 missiles since they were nerfed, but it's slightly riskier and harder to learn. You basically go up and down while keeping a bit of forward speed, then when you're about to pitch up again, slow down a bit with S and hold spacebar. The main advantage of this method is that you can still attack people on the ground while you're dodging if you're good enough. Keep in mind that this method is not foolproof like the first one, and you can still die easily if you don't pitch up and down with the correct timing. It will take some practice to get good at it. This method is also useful to dodge homing launchers and other jet missiles that don't turn very well, and they can basically never hit you. Also remember to use the boost in emergencies if you know you're about to get hit. Now we get to the fun part where we get to blow shit up. There's a common misconception that going upside down isn't useful for killing people on ground. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. In the hands of a good pilot, the Mk2 becomes the best solar vehicle in the game for farming someone, while also being very safe if you remain above them so that they literally can't shoot back at you. Learning how to aim the Mk2 is by far the hardest part of mastering it, and is something that you'll just have to practice so that it becomes muscle memory. However, there are a few tips that may help you. The easiest and most boring way to aim is to get above the target and let the crosshair fall onto them and shoot at the right moment. Use the A and D keys to keep it aligned as the crosshair falls. The A and D keys also slow down the crosshair so that it becomes easier to time your shots. You can practice this against NPC cars or lampposts or anything on the ground. Being directly above them will make it easier to aim and will also make you harder to kill since there's a small area above them where they literally can't shoot. After a lot of practice, you can use this to immediately climb after killing someone so that even when they respawn, you will already be above their aiming dead zone, making you impossible to kill. Learning to aim on the move will also be important to make it harder for people trying to snipe you while you're fighting someone else, and also you'll just be faster in general. The spacebar is also useful for aiming on the move so that you can tilt the Mk2 down without flying into the ground. Again, this will be the hardest part of mastering the Mk2, and you will develop muscle memory and your own techniques through practice. You'll eventually be able to free aim things like helicopters, jets, Deluxos, and even other Mk2s. One thing I've discovered is the laggy crosshair glitch. If you lock anything with the missiles and then try to free aim, you'll notice that the crosshair is slightly laggy. To fix this, you can get off the Mk2 and then back on, or tab out of the game and then tab back in if you're on PC. Last but certainly not least, we have the explosive machine guns. If you're bored of the missiles and think they're too easy to use, you may be surprised with how useful the explosive MGs actually are. Not only are they more fun, but sometimes they're actually better than the missiles in some situations. They're surprisingly good for shooting down planes as they have no travel time, so you don't need to lead when aiming. Most of the time it only takes 1 or 2 shots to damage the engine or shoot off critical components. The explosive MGs also have infinite ammo, so you don't need to constantly reload like you do with missiles. Also, if you can aim well enough, you can shoot the C4 when someone is about to blow themselves up. If you want to kill people on ground, the aiming method is slightly different compared to missiles. You need to actually keep the crosshair on the target and time your movements so that your shots stay close together. Spamming S while aiming will also prevent you from getting too close to the ground. Just like with the missiles, you will develop your own techniques, and you can practice this just by aiming at any spot on the ground or shooting NPC cars. Again, you'll need to develop muscle memory with aiming just like you did for the missiles. The damage with the explosive MGs isn't that bad either, with it usually taking 2 shots to kill a full health player and 4 shots if they have BST. Although I might make it look easy, the explosive MGs are only for the most advanced Mk2 pilots, and it takes a lot of practice and skill to aim them effectively. However, it will pay off if you have the patience to learn how to use them. An honourable mention are the regular MGs. They're absolutely useless and incredibly hard to aim. They should only be used if you want to completely and utterly humiliate your opponents, as the sheer level of embarrassment of dying to this will make them uninstall. As an extra challenge, you can try to do it in first person too, or even try and shoot someone out of their jet. Please keep in mind that trying to aim the regular MGs will 100% hurt your fingers. With that said, you now have everything you need to know to master the Mk2. Just remember that it does take time to learn, but you'll eventually get the hang of it. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, and leave a like if you found this video helpful. Until next time, see ya.
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港这座城市的设置。